Hello everyone and welcome back to another weather update. I hope all of y'all are doing well and having a great Tuesday night or a great Wednesday morning whenever y'all are watching this. But tonight we're going to be looking at today's severe weather threats, and we'll also be talking about tomorrow's severe weather threat, and then we'll look towards more of the future on our long range weather models and see what may be to come for the continental United States. So looking here, the 01 Z update day 1 convective outlook for tonight actually was just updated, and so we're going to review that real quick. We still do have that enhanced risk into parts of central and southern Oklahoma right there. Around that is a slight risk here and a large marginal risk out here. That maybe just a couple severe storms throughout this marginal risk. But then looking down towards our slight risk and enhanced risk, we do have a 2% tornado risk now instead of the 5%. So that is into parts of central and southern Oklahoma, into northern Texas right there. Looking at our wind risk with this, we do still have a 15 and 30% risk and that large 5% around that. And that 30% risk is into parts of central and southern Oklahoma. And we do have a hatch risk with this, and that means a 10% probability of wind gusts 65 knots or greater within 25 miles of a point in this hatched area here. And then the hatched risk does go into parts of northern, northeastern and northern Texas right there. And then, the 15% goes into northeastern Texas, but the hatched risk only goes into a spot of North Texas right there. And then looking at our hail risk with this, we do have a large 5% here, and we also do have a 15% here, but we also do have a hatch risk inside of this 15%, and that is from parts of northern Texas all the way into a large section of central Oklahoma. And this means a 10% or greater probability of 2-inch diameter hail or larger within 25 miles of a point inside of this hatch risk with the dashed lines. So looking into spots of the north central United States, we do have that little bit of a tornado risk up here in northern Minnesota, but as of right now that threat is mostly diminished as we've gotten these storms to move east. And as you can see, we'll go to, let's see, right now we have this long line of storms from northern Minnesota all the way down south into parts of Iowa there, and even northern Missouri right there. And so this line also does extend into Canada, but we won't be talking about that. But looking here, over the next couple of hours, this line will continue to move east, and this will be into late tonight and early tomorrow. And then real quick, we'll just switch to our Midwest sector here, and then go into our same time frame. We do have all those storms there in that line moving to the east, and you just have that general thunderstorm threat over the next couple of hours, especially across parts of Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, and into Illinois here. And then really over the next couple of hours, you'll get those storms continue to move east through Illinois, and then eventually into Michigan as well. And then those will try to start to weaken, and the main storms up into parts of Wisconsin and Michigan will begin to probably weaken by very early tomorrow into tomorrow morning. But you'll have that a little bit of a threat of storms as you go out through the night into parts of Wisconsin and Michigan as well as Illinois. And then real quick, now we're going to go to the south and talk about Oklahoma. Now looking towards the central U.S., and I forgot to mention this earlier, but we are using the 23Z HRRR run right here on this, the HRRR model. And so looking over the next couple of hours, as we were just talking about that line up there into parts of Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, you do have more storms that are going through parts of central and eastern Kansas. And then you'll also have some more storms start to fire up and strengthen over parts of southern Oklahoma here. And then you'll have more storms that begin to form later into the night over the next couple of hours into parts of central Oklahoma as well. And there'll be kind of a line that forms here with just many clusters of storms, as well as some up here into Iowa, as we were just talking about earlier. And so these will continue to move kind of southeast and then you'll see more storms into Missouri later into the night, late tonight, into early tomorrow. Again, you'll have storms really moving into parts of Oklahoma and even northern Texas there. And then still, as you get throughout the next several hours, you still have that pretty long line of storms throughout parts of eastern Oklahoma all the way to the northeast into parts of Illinois and Missouri. And then looking down here into southern Oklahoma and northern Texas, you do have those storms really moving through, and these kind of move through. We'll go to our South Central U.S. sector here, and we'll go to about that same time frame. But as you can see, these storms are definitely strong, and that'll be for some of these storms here and that 2% around that. And then you'll definitely have a hail risk with any of these storms, and definitely a wind risk as you get later into night and into tomorrow as those storms continue to move south. And then showing here on the 23Z HRRR, you do kind of have a MCS that forms with this, and it progresses southward and kind of spreads into parts of northwestern Louisiana, not Illinois. But as that goes into the early morning hours tomorrow, that'll move into Louisiana and then into Texas. But really looking at the strength of this, we're not too sure about the strength of it right now, but we'll just have to monitor it as it progresses and moves through Texas, and then maybe even parts of Arkansas here. And we'll compare it to the NAM in just a second, and we'll see the differences between the two models. And so looking at our low-level jet with that little bit of a tornado risk tonight, so you don't have much of a low-level jet, but as that MCS moves to the south, you will have a little bit of a low-level jet here. We'll click on a sounding here, see if we can get a good sounding. And this isn't okay sounding, but it does show that curved photograph here, favorable for that little bit of a brief tornado threat with that MCS. And so really with most MCSs, you will have a little bit of a tornado threat with that. But looking here, you do have quite a bit of instability, 3,000 joules per kilogram of mixed layer CAPE, and then you have very moist low levels right here, and that'll definitely contribute to that instability as you get over the next several hours. And you'll just have to watch out definitely with that wind threat too as that MCS moves to the south. So definitely stay up to date with your weather warnings and watches in your area, and be on the lookout for any severe storms in that MCS as you get into late tonight and early tomorrow. Definitely if you live in central and parts of eastern Oklahoma, even into northeastern Texas, and maybe even southwest Arkansas and northwest and northern Louisiana as you get into late tonight and tomorrow. Real quick, looking at our instability on the 23Z RAP model here, as you can see into Oklahoma and northern Texas, you have plenty of instability for all those storms to get going, especially into parts of central Oklahoma and western Oklahoma. You just have plenty of instability, 8,000 joules per kilogram of surface-based CAPE there. It's probably a little bit overdone, but still you have quite a bit of instability throughout these areas, and it'll definitely support those storms and that damaging wind threat as well as that damaging hail threat. Looking at the 18Z 3-kilometer NAM here, and the reason we're looking at the 18Z run is because the has not came out yet, so we're just going to look at it for right now. And it does show that same initiation of storms into parts of central and eastern Oklahoma. It does have it quite a bit more scattered, and into parts of even southeastern Kansas as well, and then into parts of western Arkansas there. I mean, it kind of does show somewhat of an MCS trying to get going with this, but it is quite a bit more messy than the HRRR. But it doesn't even show a MCS really moving through parts of Oklahoma and northern Texas. It does have kind of a pretty strong line right here, and then it weakens substantially on the 3-kilometer NAM. But for right now, I'll probably be leaning more to what the HRRR does, because it just looks quite a bit different from it, and it hasn't really done too well with showing some of these storms. So I would really just keep looking at the HRRR for right now. Now looking at tomorrow's severe weather threat on Wednesday, June the 5th, we do have a marginal risk up here into parts of the Ohio Valley, and then down to the southwest of that, we do have a marginal risk here into parts of Texas and as well as Louisiana and Mississippi. Our tornado risk with this is only a 2% tier, and that extends from parts of eastern Indiana into parts of quite a bit of Ohio here, and then into a small spot into parts of western Pennsylvania, just a tiny bit there. And then looking at our wind risk with this, we do have a 5% down here into Texas and Louisiana as well as Mississippi. Then looking up here, we do have that 5% risk into parts of the Ohio Valley there. Looking at our hail risk with this, we do have a 5% down here into parts of central and southern Texas, into parts of western Louisiana. Up here, we do have a 5% risk here into parts of eastern Michigan, northern Ohio, and then a small section of far northwestern Pennsylvania. So right now we're going to be looking more towards the Midwest and Ohio Valley for tomorrow, where that marginal risk is, and then we'll move down south into parts of Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. But looking at the 0Z8RRR run from tonight, we do have those storms and showers as we were talking about earlier that linger into parts of Michigan and Indiana as well as Illinois, and that'll be tomorrow morning. And then as we go into farther in the day tomorrow on Wednesday, you do have some storms beginning to strengthen and form into maybe in parts of northern Kentucky there, and then even northern Indiana and parts of southern Michigan. That'll be in the mid to early morning hours tomorrow. And then as you go into the late morning hours and early afternoon hours, you do have quite a few storms beginning to form throughout parts of Indiana and Kentucky as well as Ohio. And then really as you go into the next, as you go into the early afternoon hours, mid and early afternoon hours, you will see that little bit of a tornado risk here into parts of eastern Indiana and central Ohio as well. And then as you can really see here in the early evening hours tomorrow, you do have quite a few storms into Michigan, and then just some other storms into spots of northeastern Kentucky and parts of West Virginia there. And then this will be probably the greatest, the time with the greatest tornado potential, but there won't be a lot of potential, but it'll still be there for any storms that can produce one. And you'll just have to watch that as well. And you will have that hail risk as well as definitely a little bit of a wind risk with these storms as well. And then that'll be throughout tomorrow evening, or throughout the entire day tomorrow. And then you really have the storms intensifying throughout Ohio and then Indiana as you get into early tomorrow evening, and then into the later evening hours, into the nighttime hours. And then real quick, we'll just look towards Pennsylvania real quick. And as we get in the same time frame tomorrow, and then you just have quite a few showers and then storms here into West Virginia and Pennsylvania, and then you'll have those stronger storms move through into the late evening hours to the nighttime hours tomorrow night. And then you have scattered storms throughout here into Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, and into Pennsylvania there. And then really going into the later nighttime hours tomorrow night, those storms will weaken substantially, and then you'll just have that general thunderstorm risk across most of the eastern U.S. tomorrow. But you could see some more, maybe stronger storms moving throughout parts of Kentucky and West Virginia later tomorrow night. And then going into very late tomorrow night into early on Thursday, you still just have a little bit of a chance of maybe some strong storms and just showers overall into parts of the mid-Atlantic here, and then into the Northeast as well. Now looking at our instability for tomorrow on Wednesday, you do have your instability will probably peak around the early to mid-afternoon hours into the later and then earlier evening hours, and then into parts of Kentucky and Indiana here we have over 1500 joules per kilogram of mixed layer Cape into Ohio, well over 1000 joules per kilogram. We'll take a sounding real quick right here, and then we'll just look here for our risk here. And then we do have a little bit of instability in the right here, and then you do have a pretty moist low levels here. And looking at our photograph, you can kind of see a little bit of a curve there. Not a lot of low level shear, as you can see there, but still a little bit of that tornado potential. And then looking at our deep layer shear, you do have a decent amount there that'll probably favor that hail risk, and then you also have that wind risk with that as well. And then going into later tomorrow evening into tomorrow night, you will have that instability kind of move to the east into parts of Ohio and northern Kentucky, and values well over 1000, maybe even reaching 1500 joules per kilogram tomorrow in some spots. Now looking at our low level winds on the 21Z wrap, as you go into tomorrow afternoon and evening, you do have that little bit of a low level jet across Indiana, Ohio, and even West Virginia there. And we'll take a sounding here. Let's see, 27 knots of our low level winds, and as we were just talking about earlier, not really much of a curve right there, but still that little bit of a tornado risk with those storms. But just something to watch as you get into tomorrow evening, especially across Indiana and Ohio. Now looking towards the South Central U.S. for tomorrow, you will have that MCS that moves through portions of eastern Texas, Louisiana, and even Mississippi. And you'll have to watch for these storms and see if they can re-intensify again tomorrow. And as you can see here, showing up on the 0Z-HRRR, you do have quite a few storms still in that line as they move to the south. And some of these will have a wind threat and definitely a hail threat with these two. And then as you can see into parts of Mississippi, a couple storms here still with that little bit of a hail risk and a wind risk with any of those storms. And these storms will pretty much be out by later tomorrow night, and then into just late tomorrow night into early on Thursday. You could have a couple more storms into spots of northeastern and northern Mississippi there, but mainly the MCS should pretty much be out of the South Central U.S. by later tomorrow evening into tomorrow night. Switching back to the 21Z wrap here, as you can see into tomorrow, as you have those that MCS that moves south, you do still have plenty of instability in these areas, so it wouldn't be much of a surprise if these storms re-intensified again and that MCS kind of held up as it moved to the south. And then looking into spots of Mississippi, you could see those storms try to get going back again into spots of central and northern Mississippi. But throughout most of Louisiana, Cape values, mixed layer Cape values well over 2000 joules per kilogram, almost hitting 3000 in some spots there. And then into eastern and southeastern Texas, values well over 2500 to over 3000 joules per kilogram of that mixed layer Cape. Now looking at our day 3 severe thunderstorm outlook for Thursday, June the 6th, we do have a just for right now, we do have a general thunderstorm risk across most of the eastern U.S. and Atlantic seaboard. And then looking here into parts of Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, southern Kansas, and southeastern Colorado, we do have a general thunderstorm risk here, but we do have that large general thunderstorm risk out here in the eastern U.S. and there might be a marginal risk added into this later on in the coming days, but overall the potential for severe weather on Thursday right now is going to remain low. Now looking more towards the short range and then into the medium and kind of longer range here on the 18Z GFS, and we'll be looking at our 500 millibar winds, which are in the mid levels of the atmosphere here. So looking at tonight's severe weather threat, you do have that little bit of a shortwave trough here into parts of Oklahoma, and that'll be responsible for those storms there. And then going into tomorrow on Wednesday, as you can see, let's go to right here, you can kind of see that little bit of a shortwave trough into Indiana and Ohio tomorrow. And then as you go farther into time, you have this large trough right here and this closed low here, and that'll really move into parts of the eastern and northeastern U.S. And then you have that ridge that starts to build in the west, and then that ridge will continue to build into the west, and really this coming weekend it could really probably be at its peak. And then you'll still have the troughing into the northeast and northern U.S. And really you won't have much really many big features or low troughs that move through into parts of the eastern U.S., but you will have this main trough out here, and you'll have your general thunderstorm really activity. And then as you go into earlier next week, we'll have to watch right here into kind of the Midwest early next week into Monday and then Tuesday. And as you can see right here, we do have a trough right here, and this could be responsible for some more thunderstorm activity across parts of maybe the Ohio Valley and maybe even to the southeast as well. And we'll have to keep watching this and see how this goes in the future, and we'll just keep watching this. And it's kind of too early to really pinpoint how this might play out early next week, but overall you'll have the ridge in the west, and you'll have this main trough out here into the northern and northeast U.S., and you will have above average temperatures into the western U.S. and pretty much below average temperatures in much of the eastern U.S. as that cold air is kind of transported into parts of Canada down to the southeast into parts of the eastern U.S. And then now, just real quick, we're going to take a look at the European model and see what it does with that system possibly early next week. And as you can see right here, it does show that kind of a trough right here, but really on the European, it doesn't show much of a severe weather threat maybe with this. But we'll look at our dew points real quick and just see how it kind of looks, and might be maybe a little bit of a severe weather threat there, but it's pretty hard to look at it this far out. But we'll definitely keep watching this, and that'll probably be our next bigger severe weather threat across parts of the maybe eastern U.S., but still it's pretty early to look at it right now. So that is going to be it for tonight's update. I hope y'all enjoyed, and I do appreciate all of y'all who watch my videos. And as I haven't said it in a while, but as I've said before, I'm still learning, and still learning a lot just about making kind of these videos. But every day I do learn new things about weather in general, and I'm gonna still continue to get better and try my best with some of these updates and forecasts here. But I might make a video tomorrow, but I think mainly really what we're going to have to watch is the severe weather potential maybe next week. It's hard to tell still this far out, because we don't really know the exact location of that trough and how its axis will be, if it'll be maybe, looks like probably positively tilted, and that would be less of a severe weather threat for sure, positively tilted at this time. But still, as we get into probably this weekend, we'll definitely keep watching that system for next week, and you'll still have that probably just general thunderstorm activity across parts of the U.S. As we get into the summer and then later spring and summer. So again, I do appreciate all of y'all watching, and I do hope everybody has a great Tuesday night or a great Wednesday morning whenever y'all are watching.